Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to welcome you to Social Work Hub. In our today's class, we are going to be continuing on our series on conflict management. And today we are going to be looking at skills for conflict management skills for social workers. Conflict management skills for social workers. In the intro video, I mentioned that social workers need conflict management skills in order to function effectively in different spheres of social work practice. Now, we look at the meaning of conflict management skills. Now, conflict management skills are the abilities that enables an individual or professional to recognize conflict, understand its cause and dynamics, communicate effectively with the parties involved, reduce destructive behaviors, and facilitate appropriate solutions. In social work, these conflict management skills required for social workers, they include, I will list them, all of them. There are many. I will list many of them, but I might discuss a few. So, number one skill is communication skill, active listening skill, empathy skill, emotional intelligence skill, negotiation skill, mediation skill, facilitation skill, problem solving skill, critical thinking skill, de escalation skill, assertiveness skill, cultural competence skill, advocacy skill, conflict analysis skill, self awareness skill, ethical decision making skill, relationship building skill, stress management skill, teamwork and collaboration skill. These skills are interrelated. A social worker who attempts to mediate a conflict without effective listening skills, for example, may misunderstand the parties and inevitably intensify the disagreement. So, social workers must have at their fingertips effective conflict management skills. What is the importance of conflict management skill in social work? Now, conflict management skills are important in social work because social workers frequently work with people experiencing family disputes. Social workers work with a lot of people that are experiencing different types of conflict. So, for you to be a social worker and solve their problem, you must have conflict management skills. Another people that work with people that are having marital conflict, child custody disagreement, workplace dispute, community conflict, interpersonal disagreement, resource competition, discrimination, institutional conflicts, political and communal tensions, just like in Oshu State, where there was, in a run-up to the election, there was a lot of conflict. People were even killed. So that's political conflict. Trauma associated with violence and displacement, like the Boko Haram insurgency, attacks, displaced from their homes. So you must understand conflict management skills for you to be able to intervene in these numerous conflict situations. Now, effective conflict management enables social workers to. What are the things effective conflict management skills enable social workers to do? Number one, effective management skills enable social workers to protect vulnerable persons. When you are very effective in managing conflict, you will be able, as a social worker, to protect vulnerable persons. Number two, things that effective conflict management skill enables social workers to do is to improve relationships. If you know as a social worker how to manage conflict, you see that you are going to improve relationships. Couples having quarrels and disagreement in their family, you as a social worker will be able to solve their problems if you know how to manage conflict. Number three, promote client self-determination. If you know how to manage conflict very well, you will be able to promote client self-determination, allow client to make their decision, give them options and allow them to make their decision. Another thing, if it effective conflict management skill will enable you, number four, to prevent escalation. If you have effective conflict management skill, you will be able to prevent escalation of conflict. Um, Number five is promote social justice. You are going to be able to promote social justice, equal access to opportunities. Um, you are going to be able to discourage discrimination and all of that. Number six is improve professional collaboration. If you have effective conflict management skill will enable you to improve professional collaboration. You are going to be working with doctors, nurses, psychologists, and different professionals. So social workers will be able to um, collaborate with all these people without having glitches or serious problems when you understand and have effective conflict management skills. Now, we are going to be looking at these core conflict management skills. Number one is self awareness. A popular philosopher, as is Socrates, says, man, know thyself, self awareness. As a social worker, before you will be able to manage conflict, do you know yourself? Are you aware of yourself? Are you aware of your emotions? Are you aware of your competencies? Do you know what you can do? So, self awareness is the ability to recognize one's own emotions, beliefs, values, assumptions, biases. If you are self aware, so you don't bring your bias in a conflict situation. Oh, he's from this tribe. Oh, he's from this tribe. Oh, I don't like this religion. Know yourself, self awareness. For example, a social worker working with a family dispute may unconsciously sympathize with the parent who communicate more confidently. Self awareness enables the practitioner to recognize these tendencies and deliberately ensure that less assertive family members are also heard. If you are not self aware, you can listen to somebody who talks more and think that the other person is the guilty person. And there are strategies for developing self-awareness: reflective practice, supervision, reflective journals, feedback from colleagues, etc. Another important skills, conflict management skills for social workers is communication. Communication is that center is at Communication is at the center of conflict management. Poor communication can cause or intensify conflict. Yes. Poor communication can cause or intensify conflict. While effective communication can reduce misunderstanding and facilitate cooperation. Effective social work communication should be clear. Effective social work communication should be clear, respectful, accurate, non-threatening, culturally appropriate, purposeful, accessible. Now, we have two types of communication: verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Verbal social workers should use language. So in verbal communication, social workers should use language that avoids blame, reduce defensiveness, communicate expectations clearly. Instead of you are refusing to cooperate, use a social worker might say, I understand that you have concerns about the proposed arrangement. Could you explain what aspects you are uncomfortable with? So your communication, your verbal communication, how you talk, the spoken words, you should be mindful how you talk. It's a very proper communication skill for effective conflict management skill of a social worker. The number two is non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication. Non-verbal behavior includes facial expression, eye contact, body posture, gesture, tone of voice, physical distance. Social workers should ensure that their non-verbal communication does not communicate hostility, contempt. So sometimes you are communicating and you bend down, you are not looking at people. It might mean that you are lying as a social worker who is in the trying to resolve a conflict. You can't maintain a good eye contact with the parties. So it might become an issue. Another conflict management skill for social workers is active listening. You should be able to listen more than you talk. You should be able to listen more than you talk. As a social worker, listen more than you talk. Don't talk always. Listen. Listen to the party. Listen carefully. And when you listen, active listening is one of the most important conflict management skills. It involves giving full attention to a speaker and attempting to understand both the content and emotional meaning of the communication. Component of active listening: at attending, give the speaker appropriate attention. Attending, attention, attention. Give the speaker attention. Active listening skill: give the speaker attention. Clarifying, try to clarify what they are saying. Ask questions when information is unclear. Ask questions. Then paraphrasing: okay, you mean he went to the market? Okay, he's the one that did it. You paraphrase. It means you are following. It can also be nodding your head. Active listening. You are nodding your head. You said, okay, you are agreeing. The person feels that you are paying attention. It can also be summarizing. When the parties involved talk, you summarize what they said. Another very important conflict management skills for social workers is empathy. You must put people in, you must put people, you must wear people's shoe, or how do I put this? Put yourself in the people's shoe. Put yourself in their condition. Try to understand. Don't sympathize, but empathize. Try to understand what they are feeling. Try to understand what they are going through. Now, empathy is the ability to understand another person's experience and perspectives without necessarily agreeing with their position. Empathy is especially important in conflict because people often want to feel heard, respected, understood, recognized. For example, a social worker may say, I can see why you are concerned about your father's safety, given what happened previously. You you make them to understand that you feel their pain. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is another important skill, conflict management skill for social workers. Emotional intelligence. Understand when to talk, understand when to behave, understand what to say, understand when to say a particular thing. So, emotional intelligence refers to broadly to the capacity to recognize, understand, regulate, and appropriately respond to emotions in oneself and others. The important elements of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social awareness, and relationship skills. Another very important, so emotional intelligence. Okay, so another skill, conflict management skills required of a social worker is de-escalation skill. De-escalation skill. De-escalation involves reducing the intensity of an emotional charged or potentially dangerous conflict. De-escalation strategies include remain calm, de-escalation. So you should be able to know how to de-escalate conflict if you are a good social worker that understands conflict management. If you come to a situation where there is conflict, the house is burning, everybody's all over the roof, you should be able to appropriately bring about conflict management skill. You understand? You should be able to de-escalate the situation. You should be able to calm the situation down. That's what makes you a good conflict manager as a social worker. And you should be able to remain calm. Use a respectful tone. Avoid provocative language. Avoid the so so like you can't, if you're a social worker, you can't talk like this. I don't know whether it's Jamal or somebody in one cleric, Islamic cleric in northern part of Nigeria that came and said that Christians are infidel, that Muslim ticket is why Nigeria, why Muslims are, are dominant in Nigeria, that Christians are infidel. So his language is derogatory. That person cannot be a leader. Person cannot be a social worker because he doesn't know how to talk. He uses derogatory language. He uses oppressive language. He uses provocative language. So that kind of language will escalate conflict instead of de-escalating conflict. So you should avoid provocative language as a social worker in conflict situation. Assertiveness is a good conflict management skill required of a social worker. Assertiveness. Assertiveness is the ability to communicate one's professional position clearly and respectfully while respecting the right of others. It differs from aggression. It differs from aggression, passivity. So aggression is attempt to dominate or intimidate. Passivity fails to communicate legitimate needs and boundaries. So assertiveness, um, you have to be assertive, and you have to have negotiation skill. Negotiation involves helping parties with different interests reach an acceptable agreement. A social worker should be able to identify the issues, distinguish positions from interests, identify common interests, generate alternatives, evaluate possible solutions, understand the situations, encourage mutual beneficial outcomes. So mediation is another skills required of a professional social worker in conflict situation. Mediation skill, facilitation skill, problem solving skill. Now, as a social worker, if you have gone through first year, you should know problem solving skills. So problem solving skill is a tool we use in social work profession to solve our client problem. Now, conflict management requires the ability to transform disagreement into manageable problems. A systematic problem solving processes may include step one, identify the problem. In conflict management, using problem solving skills, step one, you identify the problem. Step two, identify the causes of the problem. Step three, identify interest. Step four, generate alternatives. Find alternative solutions to the existing problem. Step six, select a solution. Step seven, implementation. Implement your strategy. Step eight, evaluate. Determine whether the solution is working. Evaluate. Again, another skill required of a social worker in conflict situation or conflict management skills is required of a social worker is critical thinking and conflict analysis skill. So being a social worker, you have to have critical thinking skill. Critical thinking skill. You have to be able to analyze a conflict. In the other classes, we have talked about conflict management framework, the tools for analyzing conflict. So social workers should not accept the first explanation offered by one party as the complete truth. Critical thinking involves examining evidence, assumptions, alternative explanations, power relations, historical factors, structural conditions. Critical thinking. So there is a statement here that social workers should not accept the first explanation offered by one party as the complete truth. So in the conflict between the P squares, the Paul and Peter, something happened. Um, what was his name? That's a very dark man in Nigeria. He came into the conflict and he applied critical thinking. Now, in that family feud, I don't know who is right or who is wrong, but beyond because Peter Okoye, that is Peter of P Square, was the person that first explained his plight to Very Dark Man. But Very Dark Man didn't take his explanation at the facial level. He went down to make his investigation. And so there are a lot of accusation, a lot of flaws came in with how Very Dark Man analyzed that conflict situation. The point I'm trying to make here is that he applied critical thinking. He didn't take the first explanation. They said it's not the first person that it's not the person that reported a case that wins the case. It's not the first person that reports a case that wins a case. So professionals must apply critical thinking. Not when somebody reports a case, you say that that person is the correct person, that the person is the victim. So another conflict management skill that is required of a social worker is power analysis. Power analysis. Conflict management cannot be effective without understanding power. Power may arise from wealth, political influence, institutional authority, social status, power analysis. There are some conflicts that you analyze the power brokers, see the power balance. You need to analyze power to understand where this conflict is going to understand who is intimidated and who is not intimidated. Another skill required of a professional social worker for effective conflict management skill required of a professional social worker is cultural competence. Conflict is influenced by culture. Culture may affect communication, authority, gender roles, family relationships, concept of respect, decision making. So social workers must understand cultural competence, know about the culture of the people you are interfacing with. Another skill required of conflict management skill that is required of a social worker is advocacy skill. So we know about advocacy by now. Then another skill is teamwork and collaboration. Teamwork and collaboration. Boundary setting skills. Boundary setting skills. Personal boundaries are particularly important when managing conflict. Social workers should establish boundaries concerning acceptable communication, confidentiality, availability, professional relationship, etc. Ethical decision making is a skill that social workers need to know. It's a conflict management skill that social workers need to know. Ethical decision making. Conflict situations frequently create ethical dilemmas. Examples include confidentiality versus safety and all of that, ethical dilemmas. So, there are common mistakes that social workers should avoid in conflict management. There are common mistakes, and those mistakes include number one, taking side too quickly. So, in conflict management, as a social worker, it is a mistake to take side quickly. A social worker should avoid forming conclusion before adequately assessing the situation. Number two mistake that social workers do in conflict management is imposing solutions. You don't impose solutions on the people on the parties involved. Clients should participate in decision affecting them whenever appropriate. Number three is ignoring power. Ignoring power. Equal participation cannot be assumed merely because everyone is physically present. Don't ignore power. There are powerful people. Don't ignore it. Investigate, know the dimensions. Another mistake that social workers make in conflict management is confusing neutrality with passivity. That you are neutral does not mean you are passive. Social workers have professional responsibility to protect right and safety. So don't protect right, don't be passive. You should be neutral but not passive. Another mistake that social workers make in conflict management is ignoring cultural context. Don't ignore cultural context. Cultural inappropriate approaches can increase resistance. If the culture of the people you are interfacing with does not correspond with your approach, there might be escalation, there might be a problem. Another mistake that social workers make is failing to follow up. Failing to follow up. An agreement is not necessarily successful simply because the parties signed it. Follow up as a social worker. The final mistake that social workers make in conflict management is using mediation in unsafe situations. Using mediation in unsafe situations. Where coercion or serious violence is present, conventional mediation may be inappropriate. Thank you for listening. Bye. Please subscribe and share. Comment.